Bernie Sanders hasn't hijacked anything. Bernie Sanders is the fulfillment of everything. Let me say that again. Bernie Sanders hasn't hijacked anything. Bernie Sanders is the fulfillment of everything. Donald Trump is the kind of person people turn to when they figure out that the system hates them. So let me go get my own provocateur. Let me go get my own human form of skullduggery to negotiate on my behalf, to leverage the system on my behalf. Bernie Sanders is where people turn to get the ultimate wish fulfillment of what's been offered to them piecemeal for decades. It's ironic. I woke up this morning to seeing a slew of people in conservative media, my Twitter timeline, trashing Bernie Sanders over his new free childcare program. And here's a story from the Christian Post. Evangelical group lobbies the government for paid family medical leave, paid daycare. What is that? Free childcare. That's what it is. What Bernie Sanders is advocating, we have been voting for and doing piecemeal my entire life. And I'm going to turn 47 years old in July. All my life we've been doing this piecemeal. All of my life. All Bernie Sanders is doing is saying, dude, it's time to round third and head for home. That's it. The dirty little secret here is Bernie Sanders is not unelectable this fall unless the economy tanks because of where he's at in policies, but because of his persona. He's an uninspiring, unlikable Soviet. He has one mode, and it's take my shoe off at the podium of the UN and bang it and point it at you, Nikita Khrushchev mode. He's a Nikita Khrushchev caricature. He's every Soviet premier ever. That's why he's unelectable, unless the economy tanks. But the arguments we're making about what's affordable, what things cost, those will be very effective arguments in this election cycle. And maybe if you're lucky, the next one. But a time is soon coming and may arrive sooner than you believe when it will be an irrelevant argument. When the generation that is now heading off to Afghanistan, where their fathers served, and we are literally just flushing money down a sand hole. We're the generation that has watched the Republican Party unable to come up with any true, real healthcare reform because it's in the grips of the health insurance companies that don't really want competition and lower cost either. Because it's really in the grip of corporatism. That's the Republican Party's answer to socialism is corporatism. Well, many of the same impulses that saw people say, I'll just go with Donald Trump then, screw you, are what's causing people right now to say, I'll just go with Bernie Sanders then, screw you, you don't care about me. Bernie Sanders' base consists primarily of three people. I didn't say exclusively, okay? But primarily, Bernie Sanders' base consists of three people. A group of folks that the global economy and the technocratic corporatist economy has left behind. And that's where there's some crossover with Donald Trump. The second group, young people, Aaron's millennial generation, who are buying into this because it's the religion they were given, the religion of state that they were taught, and you paid to have subsidized, as did I, and are paying for now. This is an evangelistic effort. This is utopian in scheme and desire and in outcome. This is how we achieve this. They are the ones that are not turning to Bernie Sanders because they see bread lines out in St. Petersburg Square like it's 1960. But because for the same reason you went to a Billy Graham crusade. This is revival. This is religion to them. This is Aaron's generation's religion is this. Statism, utopianism, egalitarianism. That's what Bernie promises. And then the third are Hispanics. I don't agree with the Daily Wire headline today that Bernie Sanders' comments on Cuba will kill him with Latinos. I don't agree with that at all. It'll kill him in Florida with Cuban Latinos, but Cuban Latinos in Florida are vastly different than Latinos nationwide, which is why Republicans do better with Latino voters in Florida than they do nationwide. Because a lot of those Latinos in Florida are Cuban immigrants or families that still have a memory of what life was like under Fidel Castro, like Ted Cruz, for example, although he's a senator from Texas. His father escaped, and his aunt escaped that era. But Latinos nationwide, they come from a region of the world where the Christian church, just like in America, the Christian church has been infested with a false teaching called the prosperity gospel. And I'm using the word infested on purpose. It's an infestation. It's a heresy. It's a scam. Well, in Latin America, they have been imbued with really the same thing, but the other side of the coin. Liberation theology is what it's called. Here's what it is. Warmed over Marxism. That's what it is. It's just it's repackaged Marxism. That's all that it is. The current Pope comes from this region of the world. It's why he flirts with this off and on. It's why you'll hear the current Pope say incredible things about the evils of abortion. And then like 5 minutes later, okay, the Communist Manifesto comes out. Workers of the world unite. It's why we can get, when we have standalone moral issues on the ballot, we get Hispanic voters to vote with us on those issues. But when we put a candidate on the ballot, we don't get many of their votes. Even George W. Bush, who spoke Spanish and had supposedly great with Hispanic voters, he barely got 40% once. And that's by far better than any Republican candidate has gotten since we started tracking Hispanic voters about 1980, 84. Barely 40% once. The rest of the time, we get about a third of that vote. Why? Because there's two reasons Hispanics immigrate here, typically. One is because they're trying to escape a level of squalor. Thankfully, most Americans cannot even begin to understand. The other is because they come from a state where the welfare state wrecked their country. And they're out of money for benefits because they fused the liberation theology with the political ideology. And so who's got unlimited resources for a welfare state? We do. So you're right. If you want to tell me Bernie Sanders' odds as the Democratic nominee, and he is going to be the Democratic nominee, barring some form of a health fiasco, he's going to be the Democratic nominee.